Hello, ceramic students. In this video, I'm going to be explaining how to fill out the reflection assignment. And the purpose of this reflection is to gather, organize, and summarize your thoughts for each project and to reflect on your process and what you learned. You will be sharing your reflections in your final presentation at the end of the semester, which will be a slideshow of your work. Using Google Slides, and I will post another instruction video for that at a later time. Each of these project reflections is worth 4% of your total grade, and you should have 4 of them for your final presentation. Oh, and yes, you will be sharing them with your classmates in a live video meeting for your final exam. All right, so what you will need is your project plan. So that's what I have up here on the left side of my screen. You will also need schematic drawings for your first project to refer to, and I have that as well in my project plan here. I have both my schematic drawings. And then you'll need a photograph of your finished project. And as you can see here, I have inserted a photograph of my finished project. And this, of course, is not my project, but this is just an example. All right. So you will need to answer each question with a complete sentence, and the total word count should be between 200 and 450 words, and that's your words, not the questions. And then you will use these in your final presentation, like I mentioned before. So the reason why it has to be between 200 and 450 words is because on average, people speak about 150 words per minute, and you'll want to share each of your projects, each of the 4 projects, for about 1.5 to 3 minutes each. Okay, so let's dive into some of these questions. First of all, you're going to answer the question, what is the name of this project? So I can find the name right here. The name of my project is called a sweater mug. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. That one was easy. The second one, number 2, what inspired you to create this piece? Include context, historical significance, if any, etc. And so the answer to that question is found here. And instead of copying and pasting, I'm going to summarize this section. So you will need to read through your inspiration and summarize in fewer words what your inspiration is. So my inspiration came to me one cold winter day when we were learning the parts of a vase that are named like human body parts. I love the irony of putting a sweater on an inanimate object as if it were a human figure, while also conveying the idea that both a mug and a sweater gives warmth to our body and soul. All right, for number 3, you're going to explain the process of how you made this piece. Include tools, techniques, and timeline. So the answer to that question can be found down below here, where it says write a brief timeline of the process, techniques, and tools you will use. Okay, so again, instead of just copying and pasting this whole section, I'm going to think about how I can condense this and summarize it in a better format. So I'm going to pause the video while I go ahead and do that, and I'll read to you what I have finished. I want to mention one more thing that you need to think about when you're writing your summary for question number 3, and it helps if you're looking at the photograph of your finished ceramic piece. And that is that you need to think about the actual process in which you made your piece. So even though you have all this content from your project plan of what you thought was going to happen, when you're writing your summary for number 3, I want you to write out exactly what happened, even if it's different from what you thought was going to happen. Okay, so now I'm done summarizing the content for question number 3, and let me read it to you. First, I made a rounded rectangle template and cut out a 3/8 of an inch thick slab. After I smoothed it out with a rib, I dusted cornstarch over the surface and pressed a sweater into it gently to create texture. I beveled the short edges and joined them together by scoring and slipping to make a cylinder. Then I traced the bottom of the cylinder onto a slab and cut out the base. I scored, slipped, and attached the base with a butt joint and trimmed and smoothed the edges. I made a handle from a thin slab and attached it to the cylinder when both were leather hard. Next, I made turtleneck and cable knit applique pieces with an S pattern and attached them when they were leather hard. After it was bone dry, it was fired, then completely glazed and fired a final time. So as you can see, I eliminated a lot of details from the original content, but still included a lot of details that were interesting and really important to the process. And so think about that as you're summarizing. What do you want to share about this project? The process of it, the tools that you use, the techniques that are unique or that you would want other students to know about in your presentation, and include that in your summary. Okay, let's move on to number 4. It says, describe the aesthetic qualities of this piece, the elements of art, and principles of design. So for number 4, you're going to have to go to the section on your project plan that says describe the aesthetic qualities. And you're going to summarize all the content from this column into that section for number 4. So again, I'm not going to copy and paste everything. I'm going to summarize it in complete sentences in a way that makes sense as I'm describing it to someone else. So I'm going to go ahead and pause while I do that, and I'll resume in a moment. Another thing you'll need for question number 4 and question number 6 is the photograph of your finished ceramic piece. And you'll need to look at that and compare that to your original schematic drawing. Obviously, there might be, or probably will be, some aesthetic differences from your initial concept to what it actually looks like. And you're going to include in your summary what the actual aesthetic qualities are, not what you thought they were going to be. And you will see that in just a moment here when I read my summary to you. Okay, I am back, and let me read to you what I have summarized out of that content for number 4, the aesthetic qualities. This mug has a geometric cylindrical form with cable knit shaped columns and alternating vertical and horizontal texture lines on the outside surface. Warmth and relaxation are conveyed through the red sweater theme. The texture lines and red color unify the piece. The cable knit pattern is placed with radial symmetry and moves the eye around the mug with balance and grace. The different pattern and texture of the turtleneck applique is emphasized from the rest of the design. The finished mug will hold about 12 to 16 ounces of liquid. The size is larger than average, but not too big. It's comfortable to hold, not too heavy or light. The size implies a need for slight indulgence of yummy, hot beverages. Okay, so as you can see, I included the names of the elements of art and principles of design within this paragraph. And so, for example, we see shapes and forms here. We see texture. I described texture lines here. I described the color and the theme, some of the ideals. Here's more texture. And oh, this is a unity. What's unifying the piece is the texture and the color. I have a pattern here, symmetry, which is balance. And what else do I have here? I have contrast and emphasis. There's emphasis, and different patterns of texture are emphasized, which is a part of contrast. And then some things about the proportion or scale and the size of it. And then the last part of it just talks about the mood that it's conveying. Okay. Okay, so number 5. What challenges did you encounter in making this piece? What did you learn and do differently to overcome them? All right, so for number 5, you're going to have to do some reflecting and thinking back to what happened when you were actually building this piece. What were some of the challenges that you encountered, that made you change the course of what you thought you were going to do? What did you do differently in order to compensate for, whatever situation came up? So I'm going to reflect on that, and then I'll get back to you in a moment. Okay, I am back, and let me tell you what I was thinking about, or what I remembered when I built this. Originally, I wanted the entire form of the mug to be in the shape of a vase to imply body parts, but it was too difficult to create an angled base or bulge in the middle section uniformly. So I included the base with the rest of the mug, and I changed the form without the bulge. Additionally, I wanted the sweater texture to protrude, but that could only be done if I made a mold or carved it out of a relief design, or carved out a relief design. So the texture is impressed instead. All right, so number 6 is explain how the end product compares with your initial concept. What would you do differently next time? So I'm going to take, again, a few minutes to reflect on this, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I've thought about how my finished project compares to my initial concept, and this is what I said. With the exception of the different form, this piece looks very similar to my initial concept. However, I underestimated the amount of clay that would shrink, and it only holds about 8 ounces instead of 12 ounces. Next time, I would make it about 20% bigger and use different colors, such as alternating purple and pink, and emphasizing the turtleneck a little more. Okay, so at this point, you're going to do a word count and find out where you stand. And you can do that by highlighting each section and going to Tools, Word Count. So this section has 2 words, obviously, and I'm just going to add them up. So that's 2 plus 63 plus 142 plus 120 plus 85 plus 62. All right, so I have 474 words. That is a bit much. So obviously, it's okay for this to have a little bit more. Better to have more than not enough. But for my final presentation, I'm going to have to probably cut it down a little bit more so that I'm not rambling on for 15 minutes. Anyway, so that is how you write your project reflections, and I hope that helps you.